Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of the Bleed Los podcast. This week's podcast is presented by our partners at BetOnline. Football is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all of your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, players news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all of your sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. If you head on over to betonline.ag to join, you will receive a 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. So make sure you use our promo code, which is BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. Stopping by for a few minutes to chop it up with us about what's kind of transpired over the last couple weeks with the fallout of the NLDS. And then now looking ahead to some turnover is former Los Angeles Dodgers great and current SportsNet LA contributor, Eric Karros. Eric Karros stops by. So without further ado, here is EK. And stopping by the carne asada for a few moments, a friend of the carne asada who also has some free time like we do now, Eric Karros. Eric Karros, how you doing, man?
Guys, good to be on.
EK, so we wanted to bring you on to talk about what this offseason forholds. I think it's going to be one of the more important off seasons that the Dodgers have had in quite some time, because they got to make a lot of decisions with guys. For starters, before we dive into that, as far as the NLDS goes, there's been kind of a lot of chatter, I guess, for lack of a better term, and you're fortunate enough to not have to be on the internet that often, so you don't see all the despair. But I wanted to ask you, like, from your point of view. Obviously this is a failure, as from the standard goes from top down, but is there really, I guess, a finger to point as far as accountability goes, or is that just as the organization as a whole?
No, I don't think you could point at one thing, right? It was a collective effort. Specifically, if you talk about the series, you'd say, well, the Dodgers didn't hit. They didn't score like they did during the regular season, but there were some times fielding wasn't great. There were some pitching miscues as well. Overall, though, they just didn't hit. I'd say more than anything, the Padres caught the Dodgers at exactly the right time. And, I'll say this. You go back earlier in the year, there was a 3-game series where the Dodgers played the Pirates in Dodger Stadium, right? Pirates swept them. Pirates were the worst team in all of baseball. Are right there with them. And it just goes to show you that you can look at, nobody wants to hear it, but the reality is that for baseball, 3, 4, 5 games, I mean, you can run into a team when they're ridiculously hot, everything going their way, and you're not, and things don't go your way.
I wanted to ask you, because you played on some really good teams as well. Mm-hmm. How much do you think the bye may or may not have affected them? I'm just curious, since baseball is all about momentum.
So you could argue that if it's 6 or 7 days, and I get look at the All-Star break, that kind of throws you for a loop if you're not playing in the All-Star game, and there's a timing factor. But I'll say this: the Dodgers came out and they won the first game, right? They swung the bats well right at the beginning, and I'd say it was more of the Padres pitching was great. And outside of Clevenger, they ran some guys out there. Look at Darvish threw well, and Snell, Musgrove, and the bullpen's been unhittable. And that's what I'm saying. It was the wrong time. It doesn't mean. Look, if you ask anybody right now who the best teams in the National League are, and this is a live or die sort of thing, they'd probably tell you, they'd say that the Mets are a team, the Braves are a team, the Dodgers are a team, before they got to the Padres or Phillies. And they'd probably even throw the Cardinals in there. And so that's, but right now the Padres and Phillies are playing to go to the World Series.
Juanito?
Eric, I knew that Dave Roberts was going to catch heat, because you always got to find somebody that you can point the finger at. So I knew Roberts was going to get it. I was surprised at how much Andrew Friedman, how much heat he's taking on. I feel like this is the first time that people are starting to point the finger at Andrew Friedman. And my thing is this is like, I mean, he's in his words. There were some people in that press conference that he held the other day that said he was very defensive when they asked him the question about who's making the pitching decisions. Now, for 10 straight years, the Dodgers have been in the postseason. So, I mean, can you really point the finger at Friedman? And I mean, he went out there and basically put an all-star team together. Does he have any blame to share in this?
So I think even he acknowledged collectively there was, everybody in the organization, there's some things that everybody could do better, right? Doesn't mean that translates into a World Series. You've got to be lucky to win a World Series. You have to have an element of luck. You have to have some things go your way. You have to have some good fortune. There's a reason why, when you're talking about World Series, that no National League team has repeated since the 75-76 Big Red Machine. So what's that? We're almost on 50 years. So it's difficult to do. And it's not to say that there were – look at Andrew is the architect of this organization. And I think people have become spoiled in that this really has been a renaissance and arguably the greatest era of Dodger baseball. When you're talking about 10 years with the type of dominance, and again, I get it. If the World Series, you've got to win a World Series for people to say that, hey, this is the end all here. But the reality is, the Dodgers have been to the postseason, and look at Billy Beane said it best back in the early 2000s that you can have an impact on the regular season. The postseason, though, that is it's a real roll of the dice, and for whatever reason, and it's been different every year when the Dodgers haven't won, whether it's running into the Astros, whether it's guys getting cold, whether it didn't happen.
So, the fans have been heated. I don't remember the fans being this angry. And I know you look at it at a different perspective. You're a ball player. You look at it in a different way. I contend that it's going to take a while for the fans to get over this one, because I'm starting to think this is what Brooklyn Dodger fan felt like.
Right.
This is what Atlanta Braves fan felt like, right? Every year they're in it, and it just doesn't happen to them. It's chalk it up to the randomness of baseball. But you brought something up, and I wish the Princesa Picolandia was here, because she throws the fact that the Dodger fans are spoiled. But Eric, can we really say that the Dodger fans are spoiled when 9 out of 10 years they face disappointment?
Well, I don't know that I would say that they're spoiled, but I would just say that there is an expectation of competing for a World Series title every year. And the reality is, going into the season, that's not just a hope or a pipe dream. The reality is the Dodgers are going to assemble one of the best ball clubs, and they're going to play well, and it's going to end up in a postseason appearance. And for a lot of times, the Dodgers may or may not be. They may be favored. They may not be favored. So when I don't. Spoiled isn't the word, but the expectation is, okay, I'm going to be vying for my October seats at the end of the month, and so that, because it is just a given. It's difficult to win a division. It's difficult for things to go right. It's difficult, as we found, to win a World Series. And like I said, you go back to the mid-'70s. If it were, like I said, a lot of things have to go right. Nobody has repeated. And there are times, too, where, would you want to be like the Red Sox, where, you win and you win a World Series, and then you're last for a few years, and then you win. And maybe that's more enjoyable. And as a fan, I'm looking at it. I sit in two seats. As a fan, completely bummed. Can't believe that this happened. Going, oh, geez, man, the Dodgers, this and that. But also understanding what goes into it, the randomness of it, the luck part of it, all those sorts of things. I can appreciate. Look, there's nobody more disappointed than those guys getting dressed in the locker room. I mean, they put everything they have. Some of those guys, some will never get another opportunity. Some will, and that's what you play your life. That's what you put everything into. And how do you think those guys feel? And it's not, it's not like, hey, we're gonna, we're going to pull one over on the fans or anything. Everybody there is just, I guarantee it, nobody's sleeping. I guarantee it. And it's going to be a while before somebody puts their head down at night and gets, they sleep all through the evening.
And this is why El Compadre Karros is a real pro, because he just set us up for our next question. So go ahead there, Alonzo.
Well, there's 10 free agents on this team. And as you were talking, the architect, Andrew Friedman's got some tough decisions to make. I wanted to ask you, because obviously you've been on both sides of the coin as far as, player, fan, all that stuff we were talking a second ago. Who would you like to see come back out of those 10 free agents? And for those of you that don't know, Tyler Anderson, Joey Gallo, Andrew Heaney, Tommy Canley, who I hope I'm saying his name right. I've always been terrible at that. Clayton Kershaw, Craig Kimbrell, Chris Martin, Kevin Pillar, David Price, Trey Turner.
Well, as a fan, look, I want them all back. And it's, for me, being around the organization, seeing what the guys go through, you're rooting for all these guys. And obviously it's not going to happen. Everybody's not going to be back. If Kirsch decides to play, he's got to be in a Dodger uniform for me, right? I saw Sandy at the Game 1 Koufax and talked to him for a while, and I get the World Series and kind of the mystique, but Kirsch is one of the greatest pitchers to ever pitch. We're not talking about just a generation. We're not talking about in the last 50 years. We're talking about to ever throw a baseball. And if he decides to play, he's got to be in a Dodger uniform no matter what for me. As far as the team and the composition and who has the biggest impact and who is that first domino that will impact everything else, it's a shortstop position. Trey Turner. I mean, that goes without question. Does it work? I don't know. I mean, who knows what that, what the offers are going to be out there. I think Trey has indicated that he would like to come back, but the reality is too that he has an opportunity to put himself in a financial position that's crazy. And he's already won a World Series with the Nationals, and he's earned this position that he's in. And would I love for him to come back? 100%. And do I think he's a huge piece and probably one of the most important pieces as far as how everything falls into place? Without question. But we'll just have to see how it goes. And the other things are just, I mean, they all impact one another, and that's it. Andrew's going to have a heck of a time trying to figure out what to do. You've got the homegrown guy. You got JT, what he's meant to this organization, what he's done for this organization. You've got Cody, who's homegrown. And all I will say to all of this is I remember a coach telling me while I was playing with the Dodgers, our third base coach, Joey Malfitano, who had been, he played with the New York Giants, hit with, Willie Mays, all those sorts of things. But he used to say, he said, EK, you're just borrowing the uniform. You're borrowing the uniform. The Dodgers are going to be here. And while you play here, you're going to think at times that, hey, look, there's no way that this organization is going to go on without me. Oh, I'm so important. And I'm not talking about me, but I'm talking about as a player here going through this. And the reality is the fans root for the Dodgers. And yes, you are going to have players that you love and that you're going to become attached to, and you're going to be set, but they move on and they're going to be replaced. And look, I know for me growing up, there were, Steve Garvey's not going to be with the Dodgers. You're kidding. No way. They let him walk. They let him go to the Padres. They let Oral Hershiser go. I was in spring training when they released Fernando Valenzuela. They traded Mike Piazza, right? So, it's going to happen. That's just the nature of the beast.
No, and I mean, listen, Andrew Friedman is great at his job, clearly, right? Because he's had success here, and I will say this about Dodger fan too. The Yankees were a monster for however long, right? Even in the early 2000s, late 90s, and they did the three-peat the whole bit. Right. Since then, there really hasn't been anyone that's done anything like that consecutively because the game has changed so much. Right. So it's so difficult to not only predict, because the Yankees, if we're going to be totally honest, outside of your DJs and your A-Rods and guys like that, your Posadas, they didn't really have like a superstar roster, right? So this wasn't really a thing. It was kind of unpredictable. But now everything has changed so much as far as the business goes, because now we're talking about potentially not, people want Cody Bellinger to be non-tender. And I get it. I understand the vitriol to a certain degree, right? But at the same time, you're talking about a guy that was just an MVP not too long ago either. So that's kind of the weird dynamic of where we are now.
Right. I guess the best example I would use, and it happened with the Atlanta Braves, and we were the benefactor of it. But the Atlanta Braves won a World Series and let arguably their best player walk. They did. They let him walk, right? They went out and made a trade for Matt Olson before, and Freddie Freeman was just, hey, wait. Nobody told me, right?
Yeah.
And that was a World Series winning team with arguably their best player. And so that just goes to, I think that's just a representation of what the industry is like now. What can happen. This fall is going to be so interesting, and there are going to be so many things. What I would say is I would be shocked if things are status quo. That's what I would be shocked about. I wouldn't be. Now, if you told me that so-and-so is traded or so-and-so moves on I'm not going to be shocked, but I will be shocked as heck is if you tell me that this whole team, the roster is going to look the same or very similar.
No, and I agree. I mean, because again, the big one is Trey Turner. There's a lot of people that have also said, hey, thanks, Trey, but maybe they should make a run at Dansby Swanson. Not a bad option either, but to your point, Trey Turner has earned this position that he's in 100%. And for those people, and there's going to be people that are like, oh, he's chasing the money. He's got a ring. He's earned it. He's earned to be in this position. So why not go to market?
Well, and this is what I would say. It's, if anybody was in that position, most people, hey, you have an opportunity to go make X amount of dollars, or you can play for less somewhere else. I mean, how many people are raising their hands saying, I'm going to take the lesser amount and I'm going to go play? I mean, yes, in some situations, but like I said, somebody is going to make an offer that, look at, he's earned it, and we've seen what some of the other shortstops have made over the past few years. We watched Corey Seager, who, born and bred, Dodger through and through, had an opportunity to make over $300 million somewhere else. So I don't know. Do you take that, or do you stay for, a lot less because that's where you grew up? Everybody's got their own decision.
100%. And as we wrap this up, Manny Machado is another name that comes to mind. Dodgers loved him. He loved being here. But the San Diego Padres offered him a boatload of money.
Right. Yeah.
So
where's that ship?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I'd be asking, where can I anchor? Because, I'd anchor too. You know what I mean? Right. And you're not in a bad place at San Diego. And, clearly Baltimore wasn't going to offer him that deal. That's why they offloaded him. But, right. That's the business nowadays, right? So at the end of the day, it's a business. And to your point, I am 1,000%. I would be 1,000% shocked if the status quo remained this offseason. Eric Karros.
Real quick before we let you go, Eric, I just want to get two in real quick.
Yeah.
There were reports that Bellinger was upset that he didn't play in Game 3 and in Game 4. Mm-hmm. Your experience as a player, mm-hmm. Can you overcome that going into the next season? Can you put that behind you? Or are you going to carry that over, that in the team's biggest moments, they basically told you, we're going to go with somebody else?
It can work twofold. You can be bitter about it, right? Or you can use that as something to motivate you. So it goes two ways. And look at Cody, what Cody's done for this organization, and how he's performed, especially initially. Again, he was an MVP. What's gone on the last few years? Has he played hurt? Has he played injured? Has he Yes, there's no doubt about it. And I think I read something the other day. Jerry Hairston, who does stuff on the pre and post, and he had made a comment that it's not, maybe it's just better if there is a change of environment. And that's not to say that it is, for the long term of Cody's career. Maybe it is. I don't know. Or maybe it's better to be back here. But there's a lot of good, and there's a lot of frustration here in LA, and only Cody knows what's best for him, right? We can all sit out and say, well, this is what you should do, and this is what you could do, and this is what I would do. It's all irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It's Cody's got to figure out what works best for him. They'll talk and they'll figure it out. But it is, there's obviously a lot of history, both good and frustrating, and that's something that only the player can figure that out.
Last one from me before we let you go. You threw out the opening pitch in the only game the Dodgers won this postseason. How scared were you throwing that pitch next to Steve Sachs?
I was locked in with Sachs because he was right next to me. Right, if Saxey would have been throwing it to me, then we would have had a discussion about it. Saxey was great. I couldn't believe that. 62 years old, and that dude is jacked. I mean, we were talking about it and everything, but no, that was great. I'm glad you brought that up, because Saxey and I went out. We threw the first pitch, and we did our job. I know. I hope I'm coming back to LA next year.
How did that come about, Eric? Did you know there was already a plan because they wanted to tie the two rookies of the year 10 years apart, or
they had brought it to our attention where we were interested in doing it, and the tie-in for game one, was going to be the rookie of the year deal. And so what they normally do is they plan, and I've done this in years past. I've done it in playoffs. I've done it where what they do is they try to figure out, okay, for this game, this person, this game. And look, the reality is that there was more that they were, there was going to be more than 2 games, right?
Yeah.
Of throwing out pitches. That was the plan, right?
Exactly.
It kind of went sideways a little bit.
Yeah. There you go, Alonzo.
UCLA Bruin apologist and ironically economics degree holder Eric Karros stopping by to chop it up with us. As always, Eric, we appreciate the time, EK, and hopefully we can do this again here in the off season.
Yeah, I look forward to talking to you guys. Have a great off season, and it'll be interesting.
Yeah, to say the least. It's gonna be an interesting one.
Yes, sir.
Thanks again, Eric.
All right, be well, guys. Big
thanks again to Eric Karros for stopping by. Juanito, he emphasized a point that I agree with, and I think you agree with too, is this is going to be a very interesting offseason for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, I've mentioned it on other episodes where I had not seen Andrew Friedman take this much heat, even in previous seasons that have ended in the same fashion. I knew Roberts was going to take it. I knew he was going to get heat for this, but this is the first time I saw Friedman or heard Friedman taking heat, that saying, maybe it's a roster construction thing. We've had writers put that. Plaschke's written articles about it. Dylan Hernandez has written articles about it. But Babyface, you were at that press conference that Andrew Friedman held. I know you. A couple of things here, Babyface. I know you wondered why Roberts wasn't made available to the public, and I think that post game after they got eliminated was Roberts going out there and taking the bullets. But we had reports. We had friend of the carne asada, Jorge Castillo, put it out on Twitter that he felt Friedman was very defensive when they asked him the question about who makes the pitching decisions. Is it coming from Roberts or is it coming from Friedman? Is it a combination of both? How was it being in that room with Friedman? Was it tense? Did you feel that same defensiveness that Castillo was referring to?
Yeah, I mean, as it started, you had all the Dodgers guys. Caston came out, Rosen came out, and then Friedman and Gomes came out. And then you had the PR people in there, but it just felt tense like that. Like you look at everybody, like the Dodger execs, like, their demeanor was just like they were upset. It looked like they were upset. They didn't have smiling faces, and so it kind of felt like a tense situation already to begin with. And then when Castillo asked that question, you could just see Friedman kind of get up. He's all like, he's like, what narrative? He's all, what narrative? I've answered this every single season. I've answered the same question. It's, he's all, is it Roberts that makes the decision? He's all 100%. So he's like, if anything ever changes, I'll make sure to tell you guys. Just, but you did notice that he was upset that he gets questioned. Is the decision coming from the higher ups, or is it Roberts 100%? And he says Roberts 100%. I mean, if that's what he says, but
you don't believe him, do you?
A lot of people don't believe that.
So let me ask you this: do you think that was really just frustration because he repeatedly has to answer that question, or is it he's pissed off because, in a sense, he's being held accountable? Because I feel what Castillo was asking him is, you can't put this on Dave if this is your guys' system.
Right.
This is the system you guys have been running for 10 years now, and 9 out of the 10 years, it hasn't worked. So what are you going to do? Because you obviously believe in the system. The system gets you to the playoffs, but when it comes to the playoffs, it doesn't seem like that system works. Alonso, what do you think? Am I reading too much into that?
No, I understand why Jorge asked that question, and I feel like it's a fair question if I'm being completely honest with you, because like you were saying, this is the system. This is the system that's been in place for a decade. It's produced a championship. It's produced, regular season success, but for whatever reason in the postseason, it hasn't been producing what the results, right? So I think kind of piggybacking on one thing that Karros said, and obviously that's how I started the live when we did the live. What feels like 2 weeks ago now, it was like a week ago. Sometimes you just get your ass kicked, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like this is kind of that classic example of you got punched in the mouth, and now you got to answer for why you got punched in the mouth. And sometimes you're not going to like, I guess, the questioning that comes in line with that. And I think Friedman, with all things considered, I think that's why Friedman was so defensive. But I don't feel like it's an out-of-pocket question because of what happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if there was a lot of expectations on this team. Dave Roberts himself put those expectations on the team as well. And like you said, it's being held accountable for those expectations and not meeting the moment. So I feel like it was warranted, but a part of me, kind of going back to what you asked Babyface, that he doesn't believe him. A part of me wants to believe that Friedman isn't issuing that level of a game plan. But the other part of me, just because knowing, how many people have we talked to that talk about the input, the day-to-day input of a front office now in comparison to, as an example, when EK played. So it's this is going to be a very interesting offseason. And to your point too, Juanito, the fans are pissed, and rightfully so. And you hit the nail right on the head where you predicted that this one would be a tough one where it would take a while for the fans to get over, but the vitriol was going to linger. And I feel like to a certain degree it is warranted because of the expectations that were set forth.
And another thing too with him saying that it's Roberts only and only Roberts. Now this, I've seen a lot of this now, like a lot of people saying, okay, so it's only Roberts, then that makes him a worse manager than people would think, right? If Roberts making all these decisions and he doesn't know, they're saying he has no feel for the game. He should, if he's the one that's pulling Anderson, like he should see what's going out there. Like I said, I've always thought it's a script, right? 5th inning, okay, next 6th inning, we got to go with this guy, right? So what's going on? Like, is Roberts not seeing what we're seeing, what's going on with the game? Like, so that opens up a lot of questions there. Like, what's really going on, right?
Well, and the one thing I'll say before I kick it over to you, Juan, I feel like it's a lot of that Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
We're all doing this right now, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that has me a little worried in the sense that no one wants to be accountable, right? And no one likes it. No one likes getting their ass kicked. No one does. I don't know anyone that absolutely likes losing, right? And when you set expectations and then you run here, for me that's the worrisome part where there's where now there's that issue, right? There's that contention, for lack of a better term. And I feel like, knowing what we know about this organization, I feel like this is a great opportunity for them to rebound and to show that that's not a thing, right? But right now, where we're currently at is there's some flack for what's happened, and here we are.
Well, Carol's brought up, like, do you want to be like the Red Sox where you win the World Series and then the next year you're horrible. You tear it down, you're a last place team.
Yeah.
Many times I've had friends ask me, even, when this run, when we were in year 5 of this run, year 6 of this run, and we hadn't won a World Series, we didn't have anything to show for it. I constantly was asked, well, wouldn't you rather be in contention every year? Or would you rather win a World Series and then be like the Marlins where you suck for 10 years?
Yeah.
I got to tell you, being on the end of being in contention every year is great, but losing in the postseason every year fucking sucks. Yeah. I don't want to feel this disappointment. I almost feel like I look at the fans of the show pods, the Phillies fans, they appreciate it so much they're enjoying it because this isn't a yearly thing for them. This doesn't happen every year. So for them, it's genuine excitement because it's like, we might actually win. For us Dodger fans, because now it's year 10 and the frustration is continuing to just pile itself on top of each other, it's like it's the existential dread that we're expecting now. When are they going to blow it? Are they going to blow it in the NLDS? Are they going to blow it in the NLCS? Are they going to blow it in the World Series? So I don't know. It just feels like there's an inevitable letdown. And I think that's where the anger is coming with the Dodger fans. I think that's what they're frustrated about. I think they see everything that Babyface is saying. They see where it's like, why didn't you let Anderson keep pitching? Why didn't you let Anderson just go until the wheels came off? Yeah. Why didn't you at least be like, okay, they're getting to Anderson now, we got to get him out? It leaves yourself to the what if, right? Because it's like they hadn't scored against Anderson. So now we'll never know. Maybe Anderson would have run out of gas, but we don't know. So I understand the Dodger fans' frustration because every year they come out, they support this team. And isn't this what we wanted all along? We talk about the high standards, especially from East Coast teams, right? Yankee fan and Red Sox fans, they're so demanding that the East Coast media is so tough. Isn't that what we wanted on the West Coast? We wanted to hold these players accountable because we won a championship every year. And now that we're acting like that, where we're being tough on the Dodgers, everybody's being like, hey, back off, man. You guys are being too hard on them. You should appreciate the fact that they're winning. And it's like, we got nothing to fucking show for it. We got one World Series ring that I think is a valid World Series championship, but everyone throws in our face and says 60 games Mickey Mouse World Series.
Well, let me ask you this, because you guys have a different perspective on the fandom than I do. And I respect it. The Dodgers have been really good for a decade, right? Yeah. To a point that there hasn't been a National League World Series repeater since 75, 76. That's a long fucking time.
Yes, it is.
There's been some really good teams in the NL since then. The Dodgers, obviously, the Phillies, another team that was really good. The Cardinals, another organization that was really good. The Braves for 13 years were really good. So I want to ask you guys this. Given everything that's happened, how when you see like the show pods, doing the shit that they're doing, which I think is, by the way, it's hilarious. The mixtape rap video things that they're doing.
Oh gosh.
And this is why I'm asking that. So when you see that, and then obviously it's ultimately the demise of the Dodgers that's kind of motivating these folks to kind of come out of the woodwork. And then you see now that, I don't want to say turmoil is not the right word, but just the kind of the downfall, if you will, of the regular season, killing it, going to now. How does that make you guys kind of react to all of this other stuff on the outside? And then on top of that, there's still, hey, you guys are still a really good team. What are you crying about?
Go ahead, Babyface.
Yeah, I think that's the expectation the Dodger fans, right, is like, I don't know, how am I trying to word it? It's like, it's unrealistic, right? The expectation of the Dodger fans, like, right, you can't lose a game, right? You have to win the entire season without losing the game, right? A pitcher can't give up runs, a reliever can't give up runs, a hitter's got to go out and hit bombs every time, right? That's the expectation of Dodger fans, right? Like, you can't lose, and so, like you mentioned, like, hey, a Marlins fan or Kansas City, what do you think if you told me, hey, your franchise is going to be in the playoffs 10 years in a row? You're not going to win it every year, right? You're going to get one. What do you think they're going to say?
I'll take it.
They're gonna be ecstatic, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, we got a World Series title, 2 years ago, right? That's good, right? But yeah, like we've come now, like, oh man, we've been in the playoffs 10 years in a row. We should at least have 4 titles, right? 5 titles. You know, some Dodger fans 10 titles, right? We should have won it every single year, right? So that's the expectation that it's too high because we're in Los Angeles, right? The expectation is you got to win. You're in LA, you got to win, and I think that's another part of it too. Like, oh no, this guy can't do it. Roberts can't do it. Get him out of there, right? But it's like, again, like, who else is going to do this? Was Mattingly going to do this?
No,
Like,
no.
right, right.
We would have the same result with Mattingly. We'd lose a best out of 5 series in 2 games if Mattingly was our manager.
And that's mainly because Mattingly's in Juan's Fight Club.
So that's the thing. It's like, just I get the frustration. I'm frustrated too. Like, I want to see them everywhere. I guess just the way this season, like this specific season went, it's like 111 wins, best team in baseball, right? Best everything, best run differential, most runs scored. Like, you knew this team should be in the World Series, right? Automatically, they should have been in the World Series. And to see them lose and bow out in 4 games and only win 1 game in the NLDS, that's the frustrating part. I think that's, like you said, that's what got fans over the edge. Just like, how does that happen? Like, you just don't understand. How does that happen to this team specifically? Like, okay, if it was, the 16 team, okay, whatever, right? 17 team kind of felt a lot like this as well, right? And they were a team that just ran through everybody, and then we know what happened in 17.
18.
So 18 team was not as strong, but you knew the Red Sox were just a much stronger team going into that World Series. So this, like I said, you can compare this team to the 17 team. It's just like, this team just was so good, and it didn't pan out.
So Juan, this clearly is in comparison to the 19 team, and we've talked about that a bunch. So same question to you. What say you?
I think for me, what really just irks me is the San Francisco Giants. You would say this with probably a lesser roster, won 3 in 6 years.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the thing that you're measuring yourself against, right? The Yankees, of all the list of teams that had won over 100 games, the majority of them never won the World Series. When the teams that have won the most games in a regular season, the Mariners, the Cubs, those Pittsburgh Pirates teams, all those teams that won over 100 games, they never won. The only team to do it was the Yankees. So that's the other thing I think that's really frustrating, is that the teams that can do it are teams that are technically our rivals. The hated ones, the Gigantes winning 3 in 6 years. The Yankees always, setting the standard and always winning World Series. It just, for me, it's just one of those things where you invest so much, and as a fan, we have no say. As much as we'd like to think we have a say, if I wear my lucky jersey, if I sit in a corner, if I watch the game from this angle or stuff like that. But the bottom line is we have nothing to do with this. So we're strictly dependent on the team to do it for us. And when they don't, I mean, the frustration just comes through, where it's just like, well, what are we going to do? Like, Mookie, we have him for 12 years. Everyone here is going to say Mookie's a great player. Mookie didn't have a good postseason. Mookie, in a sense, you could say, was probably pretty streaky this year.
Yeah.
He went on tears to put up the bulk of his numbers. But Babyface has said this in previous episodes. Normally, Mookie's a 300 hitter. What did he end up hitting, Babyface? Like in the 260s, high 260s, low 270s?
I think it was like 260. Exactly.
So, I mean, the thing is, he's human, but no one's going to sit there and get rid of Mookie.
Yeah.
No, but what I find really interesting, and EK brought it up here, and I see this a lot from a lot of fans, it's a foregone conclusion that Bellinger's gone. I did not know that Jerry Hairston said what he said about Cody in terms of a change of scenery might benefit him. And you know what's going to happen, right? He's going to go to the Diamondbacks. And I mean, we've said this before. He's going to go back to looking more like the old Cody Bellinger. And maybe that's what it is. He doesn't have the pressure anymore of being a main guy. You would think getting dropped in the lineup to the 9 spot, hitting at the low part of the lineup would have done that to you. But I just, the fans are frustrated because every year it's the same thing. I look, at this point, I think if they would have won 2 championships out of this, it would have been considered a successful reign. That's why I'm very curious to see what the Astros do. Because if the Astros get to the World Series and they lose again, the Astros have the same amount of World Series wins during the same run as the Dodgers. So I'm curious to see what Houston fan thinks of their team, because not only do they have to deal with the cheating scandal, but it's like, hey, you guys only have 1 World Series to show for it, and you guys cheated.
It's true. Mookie Betts hit 269 this year. So last year he hit 264, but he was also injured. He was often injured last year, so that's the big difference. I do agree with Jerry Hairston that I think, and I said it in our last episode, I think a change of scenery would be beneficial for Cody. I know that's going to piss people off because, it's, because if he goes somewhere else and he kills it, it's, where the hell was this in LA? It's like, you know what? The situation, this, in the immortal words of Tom Hallion, that's what the situation warrants sometimes, right? Yeah. Sometimes a change of scenery is necessary, and that's a part of growth. He's, at the end of the day, his defense is borderline elite. I know that's going to piss some people off, but it is, and you can fight me on that. His defense is borderline elite. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's because he's still worried about the shoulder or, whatever is happening in LA is just not working for him. Can't figure it out with the bat. Nothing wrong with that, but sometimes a change of scenery and change of methodology is what you need. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm still convinced that Trey Turner's not coming back. I just don't think, because of the dollars and the years that are being thrown out there. And I mean, again, let's also be honest, crazier things have happened. The Dodgers may say, hey, we'll give you 8 years, 200, and he might take it. But if it's true, the rumblings are the 10-year, 300, 350 range. I just don't see the Dodgers doing it, if I'm completely honest with you. And, hey, if that's the case, happy trails, Trey Turner. But, I mean, you also cannot fault a guy for being able to economically change his entire outlook generationally with that sort of money. You just can't. Like, for those people that are still pissed at Manny Machado, would you turn down $300 million? Come on. Come on. Roger, I was curious what you thought of Eric's take on that.
Real quick. So on Bellinger, like in recent years, I remember when people would bring up, oh, you should trade him or whatever. There was an outrage. Like, people were pissed. Like, no, you can't trade Bellinger. You can't do this. Now it's like, yeah, you know what?
Let him go.
It's time for him to leave. He's done his thing. It's time for him to move on. So that's kind of changed. And congratulations, though. He is going to have another baby.
He is.
So we know he's not missing there.
Wow.
We know he gets his hits. So congratulations,
Clay, for listening to this. I didn't know that was coming.
But yeah. So yeah. I mean, just EK wrapped it. EK gives us the truth all the time, so he lays it down. And one of the biggest takeaways, like I said, is we're going to need a turnover. I think, this run, the core group, kind of started falling off with Seager and Jock and Kike. Now we're going to see more guys, maybe JT, Cody, kind of get some new guys in there, gets a kind of a new start and kind of see where it goes from. Now, it's not a given now. Like, you can't just say, like, oh, next year they're going to win the NL West again, right?
Right.
You don't know that right now, because now the Padres, they started playing a little, better as a unit, and going into next year, and depending how far they go this year, which probably just be the NLCS, but when they get going next year, they're going to be a team to contend with, and so it's not a given that the Dodgers are going to continue this run of division titles.
Here's an argument I had with someone, Juan, and you're the voice of reason for this, so I want to hear it. I told someone that it would be beneficial for the Padres to win the World Series for the Dodgers, because then it would legitimize them going out the way that they did, and it just shows that they're for real. Am I crazy thinking that?
No. I mean, at that point, it's like, look, you lost to the hottest team. You know, I mean, either way, I told you guys what my biggest fear was, is that they get to the World Series and they lose to the Astros.
Right.
Because then we just need to shut up at that point. Because they beat us, okay, they cheated. But we still probably should have beat him in that 2017. If Kenley doesn't give up that home run in the ninth in Game 2, the Dodgers could have won the World Series.
But the caveat is they knew what was coming.
Well, but it was at Dodger Stadium when he gave up that home run. It wasn't at Houston.
But still, they knew it was coming.
So, I mean, for me, look, if you lose to the champion, that's why 2019 still sucked. But, hey, you lost to the team that ended up winning it all. So it's like you just chalk it up to, look, my thing, and Friedman said it himself in that press conference, which surprised me, is when he said it's hard to figure out why we're not the hottest team when it comes to the playoffs. I mean, it's almost like the Dodgers are victims of their own success, right? In the sense of, well, you guys clinched too early. Well, would you rather we play crappy and fight until the end and maybe risk not winning the division?
Which worked out great for the Padres.
Yeah, which is one of the things that Karros mentioned it. I think fans just have a hard time wrapping our heads around this because it's 10 years that we're going through this and we just don't want to go through it anymore. But baseball seems very random. I mean, who on their bingo card had the 5 and the 6 team, the 5 and the 6 in the NLCS? Meanwhile, in the American League, you have the 1 and the 2 in the ALCS. So sometimes there's just no explanations. Does it get any easier? No. I mean, what? We're a week away now from when they got eliminated, and it's like, look, it sucks. It's never going to get easier. What it does do now is what Babyface had said before. Next regular season, I don't care what they do. They could win 112 games. They could win 116, 120. I'm still going to expect them to lose because that's what happens in baseball. Until you guys prove me wrong and are holding up the trophy, I will be glad to be proven wrong if that's the case. But it's just baseball is so random and it doesn't make any sense that a team can be this good and then all of a sudden they just can't execute anymore.
There was a thing that was mentioned in the press conference. Friedman talking about and people talking about this Dodgers team is built for the season, right? But not for the postseason. Are they really not built for the postseason though? When you got guys like Freddie Freeman, Trey Turner, Mookie Betts, when you have all those guys on your team, right? You would think this is a postseason team, right? That's going to do something in the postseason. So
it's the injuries.
I mean, injuries or just those guys didn't deliver. And,
well, I mean, but that's being said, Babyface, even with the injuries, their pitching still held up. The 100%. Pitching wasn't the problem. No. It was the hitting, and there wasn't any injuries to the hitting.
Yeah, I mean,
it was just underperformance.
I still think the pitching, though, that's kind of where they got them. I think they still need those three to four elite arms. Kind of like you saw with the Padres. They have
what did I tell you that every championship team needs? What have I told you, Juan?
Well, yeah.
I mean, and even like Anderson. Anderson was great this year, but you don't consider him an elite arm, right?
But he pitched like one. He left the game with a shutout.
Yep.
But he was not given the opportunity. If he could give you one more inning and you have to use the bullpen for 2 innings or 3 innings in that game, I mean, don't you like your chances? But the fact that you had to use the bullpen to cover early? 4 innings in every game?
And that was the thing. Yeah, in every game. So, Julio went 5. Kershaw went 5, right? They weren't the greatest start, but they were fine. They were decent starts, right? Same thing with Tyler, right? 5 innings. All those guys went 5. None of those guys went 6, 7 innings. So if those guys go 7 innings, this might be a different series, right?
Well, but yes. But that game 3 was a 2-1 ball game.
Exactly.
If the Dodgers find a way to score 1 run, another run, they win that game. You have game 5 with Julio going, which I think everyone would have taken their chances
100%.
because it would have been Darvish on short rest, or you're going to throw Clevenger out there again. It was about getting to that game 5, and that's the problem is they couldn't get there. And in the end, I think it was the offense that just let them down, and it was underperformance, and you can't factor. I do feel bad for Friedman in that sense, where the guy put an all-star team together,
Yeah.
and now it's like, hey, dude, you failed. And it's just like, how did I fail? I mean, you can't factor in injury, right? They lost Buehler. Now, we're assuming that the injury to Buehler is the reason why he didn't pitch well this year. What if Buehler was healthy and he just wasn't the Buehler that we had seen before? It's the randomness of baseball. It's just these guys just got hot at the right time. The game 2 of the NLCS, I thought the Phillies were going to win for sure.
Yep.
And then the show pods come back and win.
Yeah. But I mean, even in that, they had the 3 horses, right? They had Kershaw. Urias, Kershaw, TA. The game that we're missing there is game 3, right? When you had the tandem of Gonsolin and Heaney, and that didn't pan out that great either. But at the end of the day, you're really not going to get 6-7 innings out of guys anymore. You're just not. That's not this era of baseball. That era, unfortunately, even for a guy like me that enjoyed that era of baseball, it's gone. That ship has sailed. So now you have to adapt.
But
so
we saw that from the Padres, and their pitchers weren't even as on as, say, some of the Musgrove went out.
But you know why that happened? Because the Dodgers' offense was not on. So if you're being economical with your pitches, then there's no reason to pull a guy.
But this isn't just the Dodgers. Wheeler was dominating the show pods in game 1, and they pulled him.
Yeah.
Like, he only had 80 pitches, and he was in the 8th inning, and he went 7. He had 80 pitches. They're not touching him. Why would you risk it and bring in a reliever who could blow it up? Like, why wouldn't you ride that until the wheels came off?
Because I suspect the script said otherwise.
Yeah.
So it's that's what it comes down to, right? Is that's why that era of kind of Nolan Ryan red ass baseball is no mas, because that's what it comes down to. Is the data shows now there's teams that are concerned about their starter seeing the lineup 3 times because X, Y, and Z factors, right? And I don't know if that's what the Dodgers do. I don't. I honestly don't. I've never seen their game reports. And granted, that's why Jorge Castillo asked that question. But that era of 6, 7, 8 inning, even complete games, it's gone, man. That's just not a thing anymore.
And I still think that fucking 7th inning was just
fucking
bad luck.
Yeah.
I mean, that shit where you just scratch your head going, how the hell? I mean, I don't think they hit the ball hard.
No.
In that inning. There might have been a 1 base hit or something like that, but it was the fucking walk, the leadoff walk. Walks always kill you. A bloop single, a chopper, balls going off of people's gloves. Eric Karros said it, all it takes is one poor defensive play, and it changes everything.
Yeah.
I mean, earlier in the series, Turner makes an error that led to a run in that series. I mean, the Dodgers ended up losing by 2 anyways in that, but...
Yeah. No, but sometimes you just chop it up to like even Eric Karros had said, and we've talked about it. You get the right momentum, the right amount of it in a bottle, and it carries on, right? And then sometimes stuff just doesn't go your way. That's the way that it goes. I mean, and let's not forget too, EK knows he played on a couple really good teams.
Yeah.
And
one of them didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So.
And again, you just got to chop it up to sometimes you got outplayed, man. And it sucks. It is what it is. But now looking ahead, they got those changes to make. I do want to ask you guys, do the both of you think that Cody is gone?
I do.
I really don't know, man. I really don't know, because my mind is telling me he's not worth $17 million.
Yeah. The only way is somehow if they tell him, you know what, Cody, we're not gonna tender you, but we'll offer you maybe like a 2-year deal at obviously lower money, something like that. But I don't think he would take that. After they non-tender him, he's probably gonna be like, I'm gone.
You think there's another team out there that would pay him $17 million a year?
I mean, he's not gonna. He's not. I don't think he's gonna get that. But there's a team that will take him.
Well, I definitely think there's a team that will take him. I just for me, and this is why I asked Eric that. I know the reports that he was upset, and I feel any player that's not playing is going to be upset. I mean, we 100%. Didn't hear from Joey Gallo. I'm sure Joey Gallo was pissed that he saw nothing in that series. It's like, why did you guys trade for me if you're not going to use me in the playoffs? So I just, how do you come back the next season and act like nothing's wrong when in the biggest part of the season, and you're supposed to be a very important part of this team, the team basically tells you, no, bro, sit down. We're gonna go with someone else.
Yeah.
The Bellinger thing reminds me of, you know what it reminds me of the Russell Martin when he was non-tendered. Yeah. And he got picked up by the Yankees. Something similar like that.
I think I went back and I listened to what Friedman said, and I'm not trying to read too much into his non-answer, but I feel like they want him back, and a lot of it is just because if we know anything about this Dodgers team, is the versatility of guys. And Cody's pretty versatile. When he's on, he's on. When he's not, right? Yeah. But a part of me just thinks because of that alone is why I think they'll bring him back. I do agree with Roger, because as of now, I think the 2023 estimate would be $18 million. So it wouldn't be 17, it'd be 18. Yeah. Is he an $18 million a year player right now? No, not right now. But does he have the upside to be one? Absolutely. So that'll be interesting. I wanted to ask you guys before we wrap this up about Justin Turner. So I know Justin Turner has the option, and if I'm not mistaken, it's a team option. It's one of those rare where it's not a player option. I believe that option is at, I want to say it's like 15 million, something like that.
16, I believe.
16. Still, I mean, it's a pretty chunk of change. Do you guys think that they pick up that option? Because I'm still surprised they actually haven't picked it up, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Yeah, that's another one that I really don't know, because I don't think you can ignore the eye test. He had a very poor postseason, and usually Turner is a very reliable player in the postseason. He is getting older. You can't deny that.
No.
During the regular season, he DH'd a lot. They really were trying to save him through the postseason by not having him play the field that much. So, but my other question is if they don't bring him back, does that mean you're going to see Muncy at third more times? Are they going to give Miguel Vargas a shot at third base? I mean, do they have a viable alternative at third base next year? Do they go to the free agent market to try to get a third baseman? Look, you've said this many times, Alonzo. This offseason is going to be very volatile, because the importance to me is Justin Turner in that clubhouse. Yeah. Obviously, he's one of those guys, and Kershaw is one of those guys that kind of, in a sense, run that clubhouse. If you lose Turner in the clubhouse, what is that going to do to the team? We've seen this before, earlier, back when Grady Little was the Dodgers manager, the old guys versus the young guys, and that came out and it affected the team. For the most part, with this team, it doesn't seem like there's chemistry issues. It seems even like the new guys that come to this Dodger team, they fall in line. They understand the culture. They want the culture.
Yeah.
But that's because you've had guys like Kershaw and Turner who have been there so long to help establish this culture. If those guys are gone, who's going to take the mantle? Who's going to be the guys that are going to be the ones saying, hey, this is how we do things? So that, to me, is an argument for bringing Turner back. But at the same time, I just don't think we can be blind to the fact that he just did not look good in the postseason.
Well, and right now, looking, before we get Roger's answer, the third baseman free agent class is Nolan Arenado if he opts out. I don't think he's going to opt out.
Yeah.
JT club option, Joey Wendell mutual option, Brandon Drury, Jace Peterson, Evan Longoria also has a club option, Donovan Solano, Matt Duffy, Charlie Culberson, Brock Holt, Phil Gosselin, Travis Shaw, Michael Franco. My general takeaway from all those guys, they're all on the wrong side of 30. So, if we're talking youth movement, quote unquote, there's really not a viable option there. But what do you think, Roger, about JT? By the way, JT's 38, if I'm not mistaken.
He's 38. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot of money. I think they might, decline it and then see if they can work something out again with JT.
I should add that he has a $2 million buyout, so I could see them structuring something with that $2 million buyout.
Yes, that'd be because we know what JT means to the team, to LA, right? We know, and that's the biggest part of JT. I think that and I don't think they want to see that go and walk away. And it'd be hard to see JT go and play with anybody else, right, for another
100%.
year or whatever.
100%.
So I think they're gonna decline, and then they're gonna, again, like they did a couple years ago, try and work something out with him. Maybe it's for another year with another option. Just to have something there. But yeah, that's kind of. I don't expect him to necessarily leave, but like I said, I think they'll try and work something out.
No, and I agree with you. If that would kind of like what Karros said about Kershaw, only being in a Dodger uniform. I think JT has earned that status as well.
Yeah.
That he should only be in a Dodger uniform. But I mean, I'll say this too about him. He handled the role of less than, in the sense of like playing time, very well. He handled it great. Even when we talked to him, he seemed to be in great spirits. He understood kind of the task at hand. And for me, that gives me a glimmer of hope that I think that they would work it out, because I agree that's a big chunk of change for a 38-year-old guy, whose productivity is going down quite a bit. It's going to be an interesting offseason. I really am interested to see kind of how all the dominoes fall, because the last domino, I think, honestly, is going to be Clayton Kershaw. And he's earned that also as far as that goes, because to EK's point, not just the best Dodgers pitcher ever, not just, of this generation, arguably ever. And for sure left-handers, like, even no disrespect to Sandy, I think Clayton Kershaw is the best left-hander to ever throw a ball. That's going to be an interesting one as far as that plays out too, but we'll see. The offseason obviously hasn't started yet. So if you like Juan still want to bet on other sports, you can use our promo code at betonline.ag, which is Bleav, BLEAV. And when you join up over there on BetOnline, you'll receive a 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. So please make sure that use our promo code Bleav, BLEAV, to receive your rewards. For Eric Karros and for myself, Babyface Gimmick in the Sky Roger, Juanito, the Prince of Darkness, and Alicia, who's, I don't know where she's filming something. We got big league today. Let's just call a spade a spade. We got big league today, but it's okay. It's the off season, so it works out. This is the Bleed Los podcast, and we will catch you guys on the next one.